Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your patience and welcome to this webinar workshop on driving effective collaborative action with the private sector. My name is Greta Ellero. I work with UNDP, the Food and Agriculture Commodity Systems team. I'm a Program Coordination Associate Officer, and I will be your facilitator for today's session. So let me just quickly pass the floor to my colleagues so that they can also introduce themselves. Christina, would you like to go first?
Thank you, Greta. Hello, everyone. Great to be with you today. My name is Christina Archer. I work with Greta in the Food and Agriculture Commodity Systems team as the Senior Private Sector Advisor. Maria Clara, over to you.
Thank you, Christina. Hi, everyone. From this side of the world, I say good morning. And my name is Maria Clara Piedrahita. I'm also a member of the FACS team, Food and Agriculture Commodity, and I'm part of the training and learning advisor helping different countries and process and to find the solutions we need in the country. So that's from my side. Greta, over to you.
Thank you very much. And also thanks to our community, the FACS community, for helping us in organizing this session. If you're interested to learn more about our community, my colleagues will put in the chat some more information. And if you are not a member yet, they will also give you instructions to become so. Now, if you would like also, we kindly invite you to introduce yourself in the chat, including your name, your location, and also your role. I would like to start by reminding us why we are here today. So, Carlotta, if you would like to share the agenda of today. Today, we are going to, first of all, review why we should work with the private sector, and then also explain how we can do that effectively. We will, I just want also to remind you that this is an introductory discovery session. It's not an exchange of experiences or examples of private sector engagement. This is more UNDP explaining the offer that we can provide you in terms of in-depth trainings on how we can better engage the private sector. So what are the tools that we can offer to you? What kind of support we can offer to you so that you can better engage the private sector. This is also specifically for FOLUR country project teams, as well as the teams working for the Green Commodities Program funded by SECO. And actually on this regard, I would like to just ask you if you could raise your hand. I won't ask you to speak right now, but just if you could raise your hand, who is working on FOLUR or SECO, so that we just have an idea. How many of you working on FOLUR country teams or SECO funded, included in Peru or Brazil or Ghana? Only one. Let me see. So Julie Molling. Julie, could you share where you are from?
Hi. Hi, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to turn my camera on or not. I'm in Toronto, but I'm working with FOLUR. I work in communications.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julie. Then Franz, I know you are working for Peru, so thank you very much.
Yes, hi Greta, hi everyone. Yes, I'm working in the Green Commodities Program, also funded by SECO, and of course in close relation with the FOLUR initiative, which is about to start here in Peru.
Thank you very much. Perfect. And then I see also in the
Greta,
chat.
yeah,
Yes.
I was going to say in the chat, I think we have somebody from the FOLUR Nigeria and
Perfect.
Indonesia programs.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for this. And one last thing is that for those, on the other hand, who would like to learn more about case studies on private sector engagement, including with the public sector, we are going to organize a different kind of workshops later in May. Under the initiative of which is called the Value Beyond Value Chain. So we will make sure we will share with you the invite so you could join that session too. So now I would like us to take a few minutes to respond to a very simple poll. So if you could, thank you very much. I hope you can see the check-in poll. You have 3 questions. So please, if you can take some time to respond to them. They are anonymous. We want to show the results. It's especially for us to design the further in-depth trainings according to your needs, especially in relation to the third question, which is what are the challenges that you face when engaging with the private sector? So I leave you some minutes to respond to the questions.
Good to see some of you already quickly clicking on the buttons and taking part. Thank you for those of you that have. The rest, please do share. It's very quick and it will really help us to help you. So very quick questions to tell us how important is it working with the private sector in your work and how you feel about your abilities to engage the private sector, as well as telling us a little bit about the challenges. So only 9 of you have responded so far. Please take a minute to answer these very quick questions. It'll be really important to help us tailor our work to meet your needs. If anybody's having any technical issues accessing the poll, please let us know in the chat. We'll give it another minute. Should we get it to 10? Who hasn't replied yet? Alfonso, Lizzie, Camilo, have you all shared your responses? Arif, Jen, and Vivek? Lara, thank you for joining us. Please share your thoughts in the poll if you can, and then we can move to the next section. Greta, I think people are shy. Maybe we just have to move along.
Sure. Wonderful. So Carlotta, I would be grateful if you could share the slides again. So let's start by the why we should collaborate with the private sector. Next slide, please. So just to recap, food and agriculture commodity systems need to become more sustainable. I guess most of you know that at the moment, agriculture is responsible for a lot of deforestation, fresh water use, biodiversity loss, while still people millions of people remain unnourished, and people surviving with less $1 a day in rural areas. So transforming food and agriculture commodity systems is essential for achieving all 17 SDGs. Next slide, please. So food and agriculture commodity systems, as you can see from this image, is a system composed of different sub-elements and different actors. We need to work with all of them and embrace this complexity and continuously changing environments. As you can see, I have highlighted in red arrows that the private sector plays an important role in different areas of the food and agricultural systems. So this is why is one of the key actors within this system that we need to work with. Now, let me give the floor to my colleague Maria Clara, who can explain you in more detail what we mean by collaborating effectively and the effective collaborative action methodology that UNDP has developed. Maria Clara, over to you.
Thank you, Greta. Okay, well, I would like to frame what is effective collaboration action in terms of what is this picture you're seeing here looks like. First is a lot of graphics in it. It's a lot of information. It's a system that has a lot of entry points, but also it's complex, but it requires the collaboration of everyone. So when we talk about effective collaboration action, we are talking about a way to make this system to understanding and to find a way this world can work with everyone. So can you pass to the next slide? Because I would like to elaborate more of what we mean effective collaboration action and especially in terms of the private sector. So the first thing is that we are talking about a process that comes from a long journey that is being collecting the information of what we have done with the food and agricultural systems. So the first is that we're talking about how to embrace the complexity of the process and how to bring other actors to engage in the process. So, for example, I would like you to think right now, what are like the main private sectors, or if you belong to a private sector, how you engage with other sectors as well. So I would like you to think in your project, in your initiatives, what are those sectors, private sectors that you have in mind and you would like to work? Well, when you have that actors in mind, there's some ideas that the effective collaboration action put on the table to facilitate the approach to them and the work with them. So the first is that we're talking about some building blocks. That is the draw here on the right screen. And it's first understanding the system. So who are those actors, how they involve, and also how to co-create this process. So one of the things is how to engage other people and how to find the common things we have with, for example, in terms of the private sector, and how to bring this understanding the system, co-creating the approach to a collaborating scenario. And in the process, how to learn and adapt all these things. So this methodology, what it's looking for is that if you are thinking, okay, how I'm going to engage with the private sector, how, if I am the private sector, how I can engage with other actors? Well, ACA is operating terms is the field where you can put all these actors and you can understand how to integrate and how to work. So it's a methodology that supports you. This is the idea, is for you there. We in the UNDP co-create this tool with the approach of different commodities, different actors. And at the end, if you say, okay, I need to build capacity with the actors, I need to have multi-stakeholders, I need to understand all the actors that are in place, and understand how to collaborate and how to change the system. This is the methodology that allows you to understand that. Therefore, we have 10 principles that are allowed to find like the entry point. Should I start by participatority? Should I start with communication, gender equality, different entry points that in some moments of the process can play a key role. So in order to continue this process that we are in this session, I would like to say that this effective collaborative action is a way to put the puzzles together in a way that we can start continuing changing the pathway. I mean, in terms of the private sector, can be very useful to understand how to engage with the private sector, but also how to understand the whole dynamics that are there. So I'm putting here, I see my colleagues Alejandra already shared the page where you can find more about effective collaborative action. We're going to have another discovery session further in May, June. So you're welcome to participate on to understand more this topic. So I'm going to stop here to continue this conversation in the discovery session. So Greta, over to you, please.
Thank you. Next session, next slide, please. Just want to reiterate that what is needed is for us to better understand the organizations that we want to work with, so the private sector, what drives them, what is their purpose, so that we can effectively collaborate towards the same objective, which is creating more sustainable food and agriculture commodity systems. And now let's move to the next slide, and I will give the floor to my colleague Cristina, who will explain in detail how we can support you in strengthening private sector engagement within your programs and projects. Cristina, over to you.
Thank you, Greta. Thank you, Maria Clara. Please, everyone, do, as we're going through this, if there are any questions or thoughts that come to mind, put them in the chat. We want to use this also as a discussion space between colleagues and practitioners. I hope all of you are here today because in some way in your work, you are engaging with the private sector, or maybe you are in the private sector. So you will be viewing this from different perspectives. So please share with us your thoughts as we go along. As Greta mentioned earlier, just to again clarify, we will not here be sharing examples of partnerships with the private sector. We have done that in previous webinars. But if there is something that you feel would be very helpful to learn about other experiences, again, please put it in the chat, and then we can help, that can help us plan future sessions. So if that would be helpful. But today we will present for you the range of tools that we have to share with you in future sessions in more detail. And we hope these tools and approaches will help you be more strategic, systematic and systemic, so a more considered way of identifying who and how to work with the private sector in your programs. Next slide, please. A big focus of UNDP's work in the next few years, and for many of you on the call today, is with the FOLUR program. The FOLUR program, there is, colleagues put the link in the chat, but it's 27 countries. It covers with a range of commodities from palm and cocoa and coffee to wheat, livestock, corn, etc. We know that nearly all of you working with this FOLUR program, but also working with other programs, know and have identified that the private sector is a key actor that you want and need to engage with in order to achieve your program and project objectives. And I hope that's why you're here today. And I'm sure you already have some ideas about who you need to work with and why. So here we have some examples from FOLUR programs. I'm sure many of these envisaged areas of work and outputs are familiar to all of you. In Ethiopia, the program is going to look at securing deals with buyers and leveraging additional investments through public-private partnerships. The focus there is on coffee. In Ghana, again, how could the program is looking to mobilize the private sector and support collective action on forest protection and restoration farmer livelihoods, etc. Again, for the cocoa sector in this case. Guatemala as well has already identified they want to work with financial institutions in order to get loans for the coffee growers. So many countries already in their program strategy development know they want to work with the private sector. Next slide, please. Again, we have some more examples sort of showing this intent to work with the private sector, to collaborate with the private sector, possibly on platforms, possibly on specific value chains, sometimes on better sustainable practices, on extension services in financing. So it's definitely a key feature of a lot of the programs you're working on. What we would like to support you with is deepening this analysis and thinking about how do we do this in a way that will be effective, that will bring around more effective collaboration, leading to action and leading to the outcomes that your program and project, for example, FOLUR, is seeking to achieve. Next slide, please. So you're all working and have identified you want to work with the private sector. Fantastic. Is it just a case of saying, we've got coffee, we'll sell to Nescafe? No, we would challenge that and say, let's take a moment to really think strategically about this. So as Maria Clara explained earlier, being a bit more systemic about how we view that big messy diagram we had before. The coffee sector is a big messy diagram. It intersects with many aspects. So let's take a minute to identify what are we trying to do and who are the private sector actors in this messy systems landscape. It's not just Nescafe for coffee. There are many, many, many actors. A private sector is not just an international trader or buyer. Private sector is also the local producer groups, the finance institutions. It's the processors. It's a wide range. And have we identified all of them that interact with our system and what we are trying to achieve? And we've had some really interesting experiences where in doing this process, you find private sector actors that are very surprising. You may not have considered, for example, working with the media, the radio stations that transmit messages to farmers and where they get their information from to improve the agricultural practices or information on market prices. The radio stations are a private sector actor too, in many cases. So it's just an example of taking this first step to really map out and understand the landscape and all of the systems. And later we will show you the tool for that. Once we've done this big mapping, and it can be hundreds of private sector actors, it's a great exercise and tool to use with your partners in your platform spaces or other spaces. It's then to really try and prioritize who will make a difference to achieving what we want to achieve, the outcomes that we want to achieve, be it improving livelihoods or reducing deforestation. Who are the key actors that will help bring that change around? So then we have tools that we will share with you in the deep dive sessions, in the future sessions, that help you and your partners to really analyze and identify, segment the actors and prioritize who you need to work with. And these may not only be the ones you know are good and on side and are champions of what we're trying to do. The opposite, it could be we need to focus more on those who are not champions and may put very significant barriers in place. So again, in these steps, we're co-creating the approach with our partners in terms of identifying the big group of stakeholders, prioritizing them, and then segmenting them into different typologies. And why do we do that? We do that to really fine-tune again and think strategically for each type of these prioritized actors, private sector. will have a very, very different engagement strategy, because their point of view and where they are coming from, their interests, their incentives are very different. So our tools and process, again, is designed to help you and your partners really think about, how do we ask them to invest in the Sustainable Palm Oil Plan? What is their incentive, and how do we get them to participate more effectively and collaboratively in our programs and projects? And on the basis of that, developing these tailored plans for each one of these prioritized actors, really understanding their their incentives, where they're coming from, is going to be vital to helping them want to take part in the program that you're managing, as well as then investing more, adapting practices, etc. As Greta and Maria Clara said before, we need to understand the system and each actor's role within that. And in this case, we're doing that for the private sector specifically. Next slide, please. So just to elaborate, this is the same as I have just explained, just in a little bit more detail. So the deep dive sessions, the in-depth classes, if you like, we will host with you in the next few months. We'll look in detail into all of these steps, again, to give you the tools to do this with your partners in country. So going through the wheel to start with rethinking the system, your programs, focus areas and objectives, taking time to think for the private sector, how have we engaged them so far? What went well? What didn't go well? We do have a platform, but the private sector doesn't come. Why might that be? Let's think about that a little bit more. What opportunities are coming up? So doing a little SWOT analysis of your experiences with the private sector so far. We have the tool which helps you do the stakeholder mapping, that long list that I mentioned, really thinking outside the box here. Who could we and should we be working with outside of the people we might immediately think of? It's a very big universe out there. So how do I identify them? And then prioritize into the archetypes, as I said earlier. One of the steps that UNDP does recommend as well is doing risk screening. In certain countries or with certain organizations, there are requirements there for who you are or maybe not able to work with. So that's something you can discuss with your partners in your platforms. And then, of course, always reviewing. Let's go back and review. Did we get everything right that we've analysed so far? Before you move on to doing that tailored engagement plan, as I said. Next slide, please. These are a couple of examples. Franz from the UNDP Peru team will recognize these because we worked with him and the UNDP Peru team some time ago developing these. And this is where everybody, the team working on this was really interested to see the systems map for palm, which you see on the right hand here. So the previous map was very linear. It was a very traditional value chain map of who the actors are. But thinking about it in a more systemic way, looking at the actors who might be involved in terms of providing an enabling environment, as well as other less traditional actors, as I mentioned, the media, was very helpful for the team to think more broadly and more systemically. The SWOT analysis that we did with the Peru team as well reflected on their many years of already working with the private sector. So many of you will have already experience of working with the different actors. And it's always good to take that moment to reflect and see, as a team, as a group, where are we strong, where can we improve in terms of the private sector engagement. And then most importantly, and this is something that people have started to do, and we can help you do this more, is that stakeholder type, the archetype identification, because we very often might tend to go with those companies that we think are supportive and voice an interest in participating. But private sector is more than just companies, as I said before. It's also producer groups and finance institutions and others. And identifying who some of those who are not supportive may actually be very detrimental to the work we're doing is very important. In the south of Colombia, we were doing some work with the private sector in the cattle industry. And there, most of the private sector actors, very big, very powerful, were exactly that, unsupportive, and they were the ones we had to work with. So it's very helpful to do this, because then that helps you tailor your approach and your strategy to these actors. I might just pause here for a minute, just to emphasize, these are the sorts of tools we will work with you to adapt to your country program, so you can use with your partners. Franz, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but because you did use these, did you have any reflections to share with the group, whether you found them helpful or not? Yeah, anything you'd like to share with the group? And if you'd rather you do it in the chat, that's fine as well.
No, yes, Christina, of course. Indeed, we find this exercise really healthy for us. It helps to identify and to confirm opportunities, right? With which enterprise or company we can work together, and to set or design a strategy to approach and to engage them. So yes, of course, this exercise is really helpful for us, and we did it in a national, with a national scope. And now we are trying to focalize it into specific regions, coffee producing regions in Peru. So this is really, really useful. Thank you.
Thank you, Franz. And I think what I found nice working with the Peru team was, and I'm sure for all of you as well, we're not starting from zero. You are all already engaging with a wide range of private sector actors. So our tools are here to support you deepen that and hopefully make it even more effective and stronger. As we all know, no one actor is going to be able to bring about the change that is needed. No one company, no one government. We do need to collaborate together. So understanding how we can collaborate more effectively with the private sector is what we would like to work with you on. I think there was maybe 1 or 2 slides left, not many. Don't worry, everyone. It's just a very brief session today. So that was an introduction to the support we are here to give you and your country teams. I've explained I've outlined the tools that we'll be able to present to you and help you adapt for your programs. What it will look like, as I said, today is an introduction. The actual hands-on deep dive sessions, as we call them, are 6 hours worth of training. So we'll have those in 3 sessions of 2 hours each, going through the different modules we showed in one of the previous slides. You will then be able to take those away and fill them in, complete them, revise them with your colleagues, with your partners, in the space that you're working in, the collaboration spaces you're working in. And then we will also be available for ad hoc support as you need that. So if you're needing some help in doing that, we're here for that. Next slide, please. And just a recap, again, we've sort of discussed this throughout today's session, but we are working with the private sector. We can always do it a little bit better, a bit deeper, a bit more effectively with all actors. But today we're talking about the private sector. Why do we need to do this? We know private sector really does drive innovation. And again, I'm not only talking about international or multinational companies. Every one of the countries where you're all calling in from today has a very dynamic private sector with lots going on. We need to be able to harness that and work with them by understanding their incentives and having them part of the work you're doing. So we need to do that better and more effectively. We are able to leverage substantial investments, not only financial, but also in kind. That wealth of knowledge and expertise the private sector has is absolutely invaluable, and will really benefit all of the programs that you're managing. By only sort of setting up little bilateral partnerships or investing in one value chain of one company gives us some great examples of good practice, but they need to be scaled up, and we need to ensure no one is left behind, and we are changing the system to benefit all. So how can, by ensuring then collaboration, we are hopefully bringing this level playing field of good practice throughout the system. And again, to not have fragmentation that we see in so many countries that we work with, and I'm sure where you all are as well. Many great small results for a cluster of a few thousand farmers, but we are not then meeting the needs of many. This lack of coordination is leading to some fragmentation. How do we bring it all together to ensure bigger impact for a bigger group of people? That's why we want to engage with the private sector more effectively. And I think that's the last slide.
Yes, Christina, thank you very much. Before we explore this question, I just want to ask Lara if you could just provide us with a short, your short review of why also financial institutions, which are a specific actor within the private sector, should also be looked at. Lara, over to you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Greta. And thank you, Christina, for that really comprehensive overview of the different actors within the food and agri value chain and the importance of engaging systematically. And Christina sort of touched on the finance sector a few times. And, indeed, from the perspective of UNDP, where I sit, the finance sector has sort of been the main stakeholder that we engage with, both in the countries under the FOLUR program and beyond. So, one of the things that we see is how critical finance sector engagement is to enable particularly private sector financial flows. So, we do this by, working with both companies and the finance sector and financial regulators to develop and deploy products for sustainable land use. And we sort of say that engaging with the private sector is really a journey. It doesn't sort of start and end with product development, but we say, it starts with the country projects, starting to identify who the critical finance sector actors are in each country, very similar to what Christina has outlined in terms of mapping out the critical actors in the country, and then starting to sort of see, do these financial players have a solid foundation of risk management and technical capacity? Because you can't really develop products, you can't really think of increasing private sector financial flows without a sound basis of risk management. And that's also critical for attracting foreign direct investment as well. So, one of the ways that we work with financial institutions, and it's a tool that we offer, is our capacity building program. And it's essentially targeted to the FOLUR countries, but we also work beyond. So we train financial sector actors in each of these countries on the critical elements of not only risk management, but also sustainable finance and innovative finance. And then the other role that we play is helping pair up and identify the critical players in these countries to start developing land use credit facilities. So working with different funds, working with governments to establish and develop these types of facilities in each of these countries. And I want to touch on sort of the third role that we play, and that is helping the FOLUR country projects engage better, not only with the finance sector, but with governments as well. And this is something that Christina mentioned as well, and that was the Value Beyond Value tool. So we provide a bit of training with respect to how to sort of engage immediately beyond your value chain as a financial institution, but also how some of these FOLUR country projects can start engaging with financial institutions, given that it's not the sort of usual suspects that you would engage in. So the VBV approach, we see it as a really useful approach for providing a kind of how-to roadmap for engagement. Thank you, Greta.
Thank you, Lara. Thank you very much. So now going back to Christina's question, if you could share, Excel kindly already did that in the chat. If you would like to raise your hands or just continue writing in the chat, your feedback on how you see this program that Christina explained to you. How would you see this helping you in advancing private sector engagement in your projects, in your programs? We know that, for example, FOLUR country projects are at different stages of advancement. Some have already started, some still need are at the inception phase. So we understand that, but how would you see this program valuable in the next in the near future? Also in overcoming the challenges that you may have identified through the poll that we shared at the beginning. So I'll leave it there.
Exactly, Greta. And I think that some of the comments, some of our colleagues shared earlier on exactly answer that. So what we've heard often, and a few of you mentioned it in the poll earlier, is how do we work with the private sector when often they might have, and this is more companies, might have short-term budgets, they're worried about their reputation, the way they define sustainability is different to how others in the development sector define sustainability. And that's exactly the issues that working in this more considered way with the tools that we're proposing will help you ask those questions and develop tailored strategies. So in doing your engagement plan for a prioritized private sector actor, it maybe is a company, and then you list the problem being they do have a short-term budgets and reputational risks. How do we deal with that? What would be their incentives if that is the issue? And it's a very general term. I'm not giving specific answers to that, but we have found that these tools and approaches help to tackle that, help to provide the space where you can where different actors can understand each other. So private sector and other development actors to not only be on different sides of the table, but to start talking and understanding each other to find and co-create something that will be helpful for both. So we appreciate those. There are very specific issues some of you mentioned, such as financing. Yes, of course, that has been an issue for so long, decades. How do we tackle that? And the fact that we haven't maybe been collaborating effectively together so far that is why maybe it is still a problem. So again, how do we look at it in a different way, in a more systemic way, in a more targeted way? Who is providing finance? Who is not providing finance, and why? And how can we develop that tailored engagement strategy, understanding their incentives in order to then come about it in a different way that we maybe haven't thought about? So that is the purpose of the tools and the purpose of the effective collaboration for action methodologies to help answer some of those. If somebody would like to maybe raise their hand and speak in person, that'd be great. We always love hearing from you all. I see a few of you have also added things in the chat. Thank you very much for that. Aziz, maybe would you like to tell us a bit about your private sector component of your project? Just a few, share with the group what your project is focusing on. That'd be very interesting. If I got the name right, sorry, Aziz Oladipupo.
Yes, thank you very much. You got the name right.
Oh, good, thank you.
Yeah, I got the name. Yeah, the project FOLUR IP is basically divided into about 4 components. And we have the first component on landscape management, which we are engaging the private sector to drive most of the deliverables in that component. And we also have a second component, which is basically on sustainable food system management, which we also engage in the private sector that will deliver most of the deliverables in that component as well. I think this training is timely and also help us in further collaboration and engagement with the private sector so that they can effectively deliver those activities placed under them for these 2 major components of the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Aziz. And I believe in Nigeria, you're focusing on cocoa and palm. Is that right?
Oil palm. Very well, very well. Cocoa and oil palm.
So there'll be an oil palm. So lots of experiences there. Franz in Peru previously was working on cocoa, well, still working on cocoa and palm. We know Indonesia is also working on cocoa and palm. So we look forward to a future exchange on how you use these tools and the private sector actors you engaged with that may be common across some of those countries. So we can exchange on how we all did that. Anybody else would like to share any thoughts or reflections? Ivan, I see you have some very helpful comments in the chat. Thank you for that, Ivan Rodriguez. Would you like to share a comment before we finish?
Okay, thank you very much. It was a wonderful presentation, very illustrative. I comment on the probably a good approach to have a kind of simultaneously scaling of intervention when working with private sector associations, because sometimes working with a single company could be challenging because of some competition practices, and not necessarily is a friendly entry point to to work with the other companies that are competing with them. So in some countries there are some private sector association, let's say like coffee exporter associations, that could be a point where they have agreed in advance some pre-competitive things. So starting to work from those platforms helps a lot to understand, to engage directly with a lot of them simultaneously, and to challenge them in a positive way to move into more sustainable practices. In addition, I would say that not all the preparation of technical preparation of these companies is even from the sustainability perspective. And probably I was thinking about that. If a good idea could be to train the management of those companies, at least at country level, on sustainability issues, because there are some old leaderships that are not necessarily open to change practices or to discuss and to co-create interventions. So probably that could be something interesting to explore. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivan. And you've almost covered some of the steps we've discussed. So you've done a stakeholder analysis and identified the industry or company associations as being a key actor. Mm-hmm. How do you engage with those? You've already kind of thought that through. How do we engage? What's the engagement strategy for the business associations? And then what do we need to happen? Maybe training. Great. So you've just illustrated a very good example of the process that we outlined earlier of what we're trying to do. So thank you very much, Ivan. Thank you. I know we've got a couple of minutes left. Camilo, not to put you on the spot as well, but it's great to have Camilo Sanchez, a private sector actor, with us as well. You also have many partners that you work with, and you have to do partner selection. Would you find these tools helpful for your work as well? Camilo is still with us? Maybe not. Oh, trying to unmute. Oh no, sorry. Carlota, can we unmute Camilo? I don't know why he...
Yes, I'm gonna do that.
Can you hear me now?
Thank you. Yes, welcome, Camilo.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So the question is whether we can use the tools that you are providing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, for us, yes, it can be helpful. However, what I have found is that oftentimes the private sector is bucket in one single category. And that is very challenging because there are different types of private sector entities, as being large multi-sector, multinational, multi-origin company, which presents some of the real challenges in the commercialization of our products, because how we maintain our operation is precisely through being competitive in prices and generating profits for the company. And that is not always the way that other smaller private organizations may look at that picture. So it is useful, but it's always useful also to bring that reality check towards the development of these activities. I mean, no company is gonna just contribute to a project unless there is a real return, economic return on that investment. And that is not to say that we are not, of course, worried and working on providing the best tools for our suppliers to achieve a better living income, a better living conditions in general. But that requires a lot of effort on our side. So it's not as simple as the private sector has to put money and that's it. It's a little bit more than that. And also I have found that the donor institutions, including institutions that are participating in this meeting, really spend too much money in identifying the issues, and the issues are well known, at least for some of the sectors that we work in. I mean, there are other sectors, of course, that you have to go and do an in-depth analysis to really identify, but for commodities or products that are well known, the issues are known. So there is no need for us to spend too much money and effort in trying to identify what the issues are. We need more than that within action, and we really need commitment on those organizations to really say, okay, let's go together and try to benefit this group of people in different countries.
Exactly. Yeah, thank you, Camilo. I mean, I hope that the approach and the tools that we'll have, I think in that first step, will do exactly to your first point, really differentiate, because the private sector is very often identified as one big bucket, as you said, and it is not. It is very diverse. In many countries, with some of the programs colleagues on the call are probably working on, we do not deal with international private sector and the big multinationals. It is national private sector. So it's really breaking it down and knowing who needs to collaborate how. And I think to your last points on moving to action, basically, really speaks to Maria Clara's introduction to something that UNDP also believes in very strongly, collaborating more effectively for action, exactly that, to achieve common objective, co-create common objectives and ways there. And to do that, we need to understand each other better, and that includes the very, very diverse group that is the private sector. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. Thank you all. And I will finish off by handing it to Greta. Thanks, Camilo.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for participating. We are at the end of our session. So now I just invite you, when you close Zoom, you will receive the invitation to complete a survey. I really invite you to do so because you will have the chance to share your contact details if you want to take the in-depth training. So if you are unable to respond to the Zoom survey, but you are still interested in participating in future in-depth trainings, you can also write me an email. I just put in the chat my email address, so you can of course reach out anytime to us. I hope this was useful. Thank you very much for being with us today, and see you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.